Hello, Scrufftards. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we are looking at the end of the Kursk incursion. Ukraine is falling back. Russia is pushing. Russia is cutting off logistical routes for Ukraine. And I think within 1 or 2 weeks, this Ukrainian invasion of Russia will be over, is my guess, judging by how Russia is operating and where they are applying pressure and how much Ukraine is at the moment falling back. Right, so using the image for the thumbnail here, we actually get a pretty decent view of, or a decent idea rather, of what the Russians are up to here. With this big push here, straight for Yunakivka, the main logistical supply hub that Ukraine relies on to support the entire campaign in Kursk. The push down south here to cut the supplies coming in from the south, in part from Yunakivka this way. And then this push that has now expanded. And of course, the attempt to cross, to infiltrate via the pipelines into Suja. As you can see, it's pretty obvious that we are seeing deliberate attempts to surround, cut off, and isolate the Ukrainians. And they want to isolate the northern parts, forcing them to fall back, coming in here to cut off supplies, coming in here to cut off supplies. I mean, basically surrounding and isolating the Ukrainians in Kursk, in Suja. I mean, it's pretty obvious that all of this is part of a deliberate operation to finally kick Ukraine out of Russia. I mean, I don't think you can make a decent counter argument that this is not all part of a greater strategy to eventually force Ukraine out with these deliberate attacks at the logistics and then coming in at various locations to try and surround the Ukrainians. And taking a look at Deep State, we have the big push to the south and the push this way, the Russian claims. Let's see here, you can see Ukraine falling back, and here you have the push through Lebedivka. Clearly they are trying to push over here. If we move over to Andrews map, you can see the push through Lebedivka. They are trying to push through here to where the claims are heading. The claim is that Russia has moved all the way over here to these towns. These are Ukrainian retreats. Could that be an indication that we have Russians over here, or is this Ukrainians falling back from the north? Who knows? And of course the failed Russian attempt to move through the pipelines here across these wide open fields. Here you have Mayakovsk 73's map. Again, the push through Lebedivka. We can see how Russia is, I think it's more Ukraine falling back, to be honest, than Russia making successful advances, or attacks rather. They are advancing, but Ukraine is abandoning positions, and that allows Russia to move in all over the place. So the question is, I guess, will Ukraine try and force Russia back down here and over here? Or are they about to abandon Kursk in its entirety? I think they're leaving the entire thing, to be honest, because let's see here, my map, away. Because if it's true that they're coming down here through Lebedivka and heading for Kubatin, as is the claim, and Sasulevka, I mean, as you can see, if this is also where you have Ukrainians falling back. If Russia is pushing here to reach Kubatkin, then all of this northern part here is cut off and, isolated. So I think that is why we're seeing Ukraine falling back. Russia is coming in hard this way towards Kubatkin, and Ukraine is trying to avoid getting trapped So they're falling back at a rapid pace, abandoning positions. That is why we're seeing Russia moving in, and Ukraine is now moving fast as hell to end up south of Kubatkin and Sasulevka. Because Russia is coming in through Lebedevka, and they're gonna push hard to reach these two towns, according to claims. And in so doing, if there are any Ukrainians left up here, they will be cut off. So, yeah, I think it's over. I think Ukraine will leave Kursk altogether. They had a opportunity, if they managed to keep the Russians, like I've repeated, outside of the river systems here, then they stood a chance of actually holding on to this territory within the river systems. But Russia, as we know, they made it across here and then moved up this valley, and they are almost at this junction here where Ukraine is bringing in logistics. So Russia's moved up this valley and essentially cut off the logistics down here, and they are pushing in this part south, following the river rather than crossing it, the river Lochnia towards Inakivka, where all the supplies are gathered and then shipped out into Sucha, or into Kursk rather. So it's devolving rapidly, and it's, like I said a couple of days ago, it's when we first saw this happen, it's probably over, especially with Russia making gains up here. And if we take a look at the ISW map, I mean, you can see here that Russia, according to ISW, has a lot of territory. They're pushing Ukraine back pretty extensively, and securing territory within Ukraine. They are on the outskirts. The claims are that they are on the outskirts of Suja. They have pushed all the way through here, like we were talking about. Is not looking good, to be honest. Not sure how else to frame it. And I think we're seeing a general retreat out of Sucha in the next couple of days, and Ukraine will be forced to defend the woods down here to prevent Russia from pushing further into Sumy. I think that's what's going on. Ukraine is leaving, and they're gonna then defend the woods here in order to defend Sumy itself from a Russian invasion. So was this a failure? Absolutely not. Ukraine forced Russia to allocate 100,000 troops minimum to Kursk, away from the front line in Ukraine. Russia suffered 40% casualties, horrendous casualties, and Ukraine held the line within Russia for 7-8 months, 6 months, 6 to 7 months, and they were so close in achieving so much more, especially at Koronevo. They were right outside of Koronevo, and had they managed to grab that town, they could have held on for another 6 months, guaranteed, and then Russia would have been forced to send in another 50,000, maybe another 100,000 troops to deal with it. And so this was, it was a bold plan, and it was worth the attempt, I think, because it was so close to actually achieving its objectives in forcing Russia to move 200,000 troops from Ukraine into Russia itself. It would have had a tremendous impact on the front lines within Ukraine if that would have happened. So well worth the attempt, and Ukraine almost pulled it off, and only holding Suja, failing in grabbing Koronevo and Glishkovo. So, and that alone, 1 out of 3 objectives, forced Russia to move 100,000 troops to Russia instead of fighting in Ukraine. So no, this was not a failure. They could have never held territory indefinitely within Russia, so eventually Ukraine would have been pushed out. That was, known from the get-go. The problem was they did not grab Koronevo. That would have made all the difference in the world for this incursion. Anyway, that's going to have to be it. And I hope I'll see you in the next one. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.